Welcome to The Better Life with Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston. Join Dr. Pinkston today as she teaches you how an integrative approach to health, combining holistic and contemporary medical information, can lead you to the better life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston, and welcome to The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston. I am, as always, happy to bring you some cutting-edge guests and topics, and I do think that this is cutting edge, and we will visit a little bit more about women and, developing your best life. And so today I am bringing Dr. Stephanie Byerly, an anesthesiologist who is now focusing on women's health, and she is a certified life and leadership coach for women. Also, has done some trauma-informed coaching. It developed a program called the UnNUM method, and that is individual coaching, but now also has a NUM collective for group coaching and so much more. We had a great discussion leading up to opening the show. And so, Dr. Byerly, Stephanie, I am so glad to have you on and honored. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here and have this conversation with you.
Thank you. I too, because I do think that this is, as we spoke before, an underrepresented issue for women, that we've had some difficulties in our lives that are affecting our health deeply, to say the very least. And so, but please start out, tell us your story and how you arrived at this place that you are.
So I'm currently still working as an anesthesiologist, and then the rest of my time is for my coaching and keynote speaking and TedX speaking. But I had a very interesting childhood, probably like a lot of us. I grew up in a lot of adversity with a single mom. My father left when I was 2, and I don't know how she did it, because back in the day, women couldn't get a credit card by themselves or a loan, and all of the things. And so she had her own challenges, severe mental illness. And so I grew up in a really unstable home and was responsible for her from the time I was about 9, ended up having to start working when I was 15 to pay her rent. And I was sick as a child in the hospital a lot. And I believe that I saw healthcare workers as these very noble people who took care of people who needed help. And so from the time that I could talk, I think my sister would say, I always said I'm going to be a doctor. And so went through, became a doctor, thought, okay, I sort of outrun my childhood and what my life looked like. I'm going to have a very different life than what my mother had. And if I have a family, my children's life is not going to look like mine. Mm-hmm. And got married my last year of medical school to somebody who was very mentally ill, unbeknownst to me. A lot of trauma. So a whole life full of trauma. Sure. And when I got out of that relationship, when I got divorced, I started really understanding the amount of trauma that I had and that I needed to figure it out. And this was before they talked about burnout. It wasn't even a term back then. But I was responsible for both my daughters pretty much. And I had to figure this out because I was at work. I was very reactive. And being an anesthesiologist and being reactive is a bad combination. And I worked in a very male-dominated place, the university in Dallas. And I thought, you know what? This isn't working. I'm in a major leadership role. I have to take care of my kids. This is not how I planned. And so I went on this journey and started figuring it out really rapidly because I didn't have self-awareness of how I was showing up. So once I got a hold of that piece, people started partnering with me and saying, hey, we want to make you chief of staff. We want to do this. We want to do that. And I'm like, hey, this is working, And a pivotal piece was I was doing something called psychodrama. Have you ever heard of psychodrama?
Yes.
Yeah. So kind of crazy to volunteer to go spend a weekend with people reenacting your traumas, but I did. And there was this amazing facilitator, and her name was Shirley. And she kept asking me why I became an anesthesiologist. And I wasn't giving her a deep enough answer. And she was leaning over me. I'll never forget this. And she said, why did you become an anesthesiologist? And I said, you know what? Apparently, I don't know. Can you tell me? And she said, you have been numb your entire life, every day of your life. And what do you do every day? You make people numb by putting them to sleep so they don't feel the most horrific things being done to them during surgery. And that was my whole life flashed before my eyes, and I saw myself numb in every situation. So it was a very pivotal moment. And I began my journey of understanding my trauma, but not until about 5 or 6 years ago did I really understand my trauma when I went through trauma therapy. That was really the pivotal piece. And so I thought, I have to help women in a different way. And I went on this journey and became a life coach and leadership coach, and then found women-centered coaching, which is just amazing because it is a type of coaching that women really have to have a long-term transformation. And then my trauma-informed coaching. So I combine all of those for my company that I have, but I also do a lot of trauma-informed coaching for an organization where we go into big organizations and we teach leadership trauma-informed ways to lead and how that changes culture in an organization.
Wow, that is beautiful and such a parallel story to my world as well. Same thing. I think we are not as unique as we think we are. I think there are lots of people, and I mean that lovingly. There are lots of women out there who have lived this deep, dark numbness that you speak of, and I agree entirely. And it seems to me that women about somewhere maybe 35, they begin to sense that something's wrong. But I find women, reaching kind of menopausal age, so 45 to 50 or so, tend to get hit in the face with it. It's something you can no longer deny. Do you find that is true?
Oh, yeah. And I think, there's so many things happening at that time period when you're becoming perimenopausal or menopausal or postmenopausal, because when our estrogen level drops, we start to not really care if anybody likes us anymore or taking care of everybody, right? Yes. And then we know subconsciously that in the big scheme of why women are on this planet, that we're not here to procreate anymore. So that piece of evolution is gone. There's so much ageism. And then we're in this self-actualization phase where we're at the point in Maslow's hierarchy of needs where, like, you know what? I've checked the boxes. I've been the good little girl. I've done it all. And I'm miserable. And my soul is screaming, there's got to be more. This is not what I planned for. And you just feel so disconnected from yourself, from everyone around you, from your body, your pleasure. It's like we are out of our body all the time. We're in our head, right? Always looking for something to make me feel good about myself.
Absolutely.
And it's so sad. I did it forever. And when I started understanding this, that was what led my passion where I thought, you know what, I'm doing this. I'm not going to my deathbed regretting that I didn't do whatever I could to help women understand this.
Thank God for that. Absolutely. I join you in that march because it's so incredibly important. I look back and I think, 50 years of my life, what was I doing? But it's important. It all added in to make me who I am and the doctor that I am and what I do. And it's important. So thank God for it. But at the same time, I do feel a grief and a loss of years that, I could have performed better, even for my children, for my patients, for my family, just to take care of me finally. So, where does your program center now? So tell me a little bit about your program and how, how and your approach to it, I guess, so that people understand exactly what it is you're doing.
I do programs that last about 6 months for one-on-one coaching and for group. But what I do is first I combine some life coaching and I explain and teach my clients that there is actually a formula to get the results you want in your life from a way of understanding how our brain is working and the neuroscience of it. And I teach them something called the thought model, where it was adapted by Brooke Castillo from the Life Coach School, and really understanding something happens, a circumstance, and we have thoughts, and then we have feelings, actions, and results. And we actually understand what our brain is doing, that it's a meaning-making machine, and it's making stories to decide if we're safe or not. And most of the stories in our brain are not true. So if we can slow down and start to look at our thoughts and realize, okay, if I can see what's happening, I can actually pause, allow these feelings, and instead of going down the normal pathway of what this feeling is going to lead to, I can revisit the thoughts and go, is this a story or is this actually a fact? And is there a way to look at this in a different way? And sometimes there's not, but then you get to plan how you show up with your actions or your inactions, and that creates your results. So when I teach my clients that is like a magical moment, because it gives you back a sense of agency and choice where you actually feel like, okay, I can get some control here. My life feels out of control, and now I'm getting these pieces back. So it really empowers you very quickly. And then we look at your personality type. And I have my clients take a really quick test from Positive Intelligence about these saboteurs. And it really helps you understand your personality was set in place by the time you were 7. And it was based on how safe your body, your nervous system sensed that you were. So you're not broken. You're showing up in this way, and there's no other way it could have been.
Right.
So we start to look at that, and then they really start to see, oh my gosh, I get it now. I'm become very self-aware. And then we build in this women-centered coaching, which is all about these inner barriers that women face. And Dr. Claire Zammit identified 21 of them. But the major one is the achiever identity. And that's what most of us are living through. And so we're basing every conversation, every action, everything we do is based on a lens of this achiever. And so we get into this robot mode. And the achiever identity has served us so well, but we're at the end of what that identity can actually do for us, because we're ready to evolve. And then I bring in the trauma-informed piece, not for people who have had a trauma right now and they're in a trauma kind of a very unstable place. But we look at it and we say, you know what, you did have trauma. We're not excavating your trauma, but we're looking at how your trauma is having you show up, because people really don't understand that trauma lives in your nervous system, and that you may be showing up in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and you didn't choose that response either. And most of the time it's because your nervous system is sensing danger. And so I teach my clients a lot about getting back in their body, embodying safety, a lot of somatic things, a lot of mindfulness, morning routines, nighttime routines. And it really, we go through an identity shift and we become the author of our life. And so it is so magical, because my clients are all high achieving women, and they all come to me and, it's me, I'm broken, I don't have any confidence. And then I get a call, like after the first 4 or 5 sessions, I'm starting a podcast, or I applied for this job, or I went in and negotiated for a raise. Because another piece that I teach people is about the patriarchy, and not in a way of we hate men, but these are the waters we're swimming in. Let's understand the playing field. And when you're a woman leader and you understand there's a power penalty and there's a likability clause, you start to realize, oh my goodness, I thought all of this was me. Now there are things I need to change in the way I'm showing up, most likely in some situations. And I have to understand that other people, because of their socialization, men and women, are automatically perceiving me in this way. So it's just magical.
Boy, it is. It absolutely is. And so just to dig a little deeper, and I hope I've phrased this question correctly, but why are so many of our maladaptive behaviors that are almost kind of, like you say, reactionary, kind of our instant go-to behaviors? Why is that a safety net? Why does our brain, our body consider that a safe place to go, as opposed to opening up and looking at, what we're doing and getting more of a parasympathetic drive side to it? But why is that safety net there? Would consider it a safety net? I hope that makes sense.
It's so interesting when we start to understand this was set up from the time that humans started walking on the planet. And our brain, when you wake up in the morning, you have 2 brains, really. One is your caveman brain, which is your default brain, because it still thinks you live in a cave. And our brain can't sense time. And so we have our thinking brain over here. But what happens is that we have this negativity bias. As soon as we wake up every day, our negative thoughts are 5 times more prevalent than our positive thoughts. And so if you have 60,000 thoughts a day, and we're supposed to be conscious of 5%, which I'm not sure if I'm conscious of that many, but if you consider that, oh my gosh, 80% of my thoughts are these negative thoughts, same thoughts every day. And so your brain is doing 3 things. Am I safe or not? Like, am I going to get eaten by a tiger? Am I going to starve to death, or am I feeling pain? And so it looks at everything through that lens. But what it does, our exquisite nervous system, when we start to feel negative emotion, because we're told we're not supposed to, all the things, our brain goes, I don't like this. So I'm going to send you a message to go get a dopamine hit. And what that leads to is these behaviors of, for me, it's like shopping. I love shopping. But, drinking, eating, shopping. Porn has become a huge thing. Oh my goodness. Overworking out, overworking. That's one of my big things. But the what we don't understand is that it gives us that hit for a little bit. And then we're like, okay, what do I do next? And the piece for women is that because we're in this achiever identity and we've never really been able to have this sense of achievement and self-validation, we're always looking for external things. So we get something, right? Okay, you're like, oh, okay, I ran this marathon. I feel great for a day. Now, what am I going to do to move the goalposts, right, even further?
Correct.
Because maybe the next thing I do will make me feel good about myself. Because, again, as women, we've been taught, most of us, from the time we were born, the day could perceive, that we were not worthy of our own validation and that we are to get validation from other people, especially men, and from things, right? Like degrees, certifications, let me take another class, let me do this. So we're on this treadmill.
Yes.
And it's exhausting. And we're taking care of everybody else, usually at our own expense.
Correct.
Because we're told that if we focus on ourselves, we're selfish.
Yes.
And that we should just be grateful for the life we have. And so you can see the inner war. It is so, besides being exhausting, we can't really tolerate the pain of how much we have been shrinking to fit in and how we have silenced our voice. So it's easier to become numb and to have these masks of perfection on the outside. And inside, our soul is screaming, how did this happen? This is not what we planned for.
Right.
Worked so hard, right? Checked the boxes,
Yep.
Conquered and achieved, did it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like this hollow shell of a person.
Right.
Yeah.
You see how emphatic I'm being here because I'm like guilty.
Yeah. I mean,
Really.
yeah.
And so thank you for explaining that because I really want people to understand, women and men, whoever's listening, for people to understand how this happens. And the other thing that I think comes up, and we mentioned this before we started, about women who fall victim to narcissistic friends, men, smart women too, smart, very high achieving women, again.
Yeah.
And how we fall for the charm of it all. And I know we're kind of switching gears on that, but I think that's a piece of the puzzle, right? That we do this.
Yes, it's very much a piece of the puzzle. And every single one of my clients has a narcissist in their life, either as a spouse or at work or a friend. And it could be a man or a woman. Yep. And the thing is that I learned, because I started delving into this, because I thought, well, it can't just be me. I mean, and I started realizing, wow, is that narcissists are attracted to high-powered women. And the reason is because they have so much shame and hatred of themselves that they see other people as, like, say, to these shiny, people who people love, they're attractive, they're successful, they're happy, and they want what they have, right? So they think that this other person is going to make me happy. Right. And that's a key piece, is we all have to realize that another person cannot make us happy.
Right.
But what happens is it's that wonderful honeymoon period, charisma. Oh my gosh, I met my knight in shining armor, right? The love bombing. And then when things start to fall back into everyday life and they start to feel really that negativity about themselves, they start to try to control the other person, not understanding why they're doing it, but they're trying to get that energy back from the other person. And so they start to control and criticize and brainwash.
Right.
So it's that push-pull, right? And then it's the love bombing again, and then it's the pushing you away. And you, as the person in the relationship, start to think it's you.
Right.
Right? And they tell you it's you, and you start to believe it. And you actually become, it's almost like you become afraid of your own shadow, and you don't trust yourself anymore. So you're in this abusive relationship, and it's so destructive.
Yes.
Until the other side of it, if you are able to understand it and move out of this relationship and learn to trust yourself again and go through the healing process, you are very powerful then, because then you see what's coming your way and you are ready for that. Right. And you become unstoppable in a lot of ways.
Absolutely, isn't it? Where life then becomes unstoppable. The way that it comes at you, the blessings and all, when you begin to see it. I hate that we have to be middle-aged to do that, it seems. I wish we could love to feed this to younger women early before, they fall victim to it, because it's a wonderful place to be. Seems, though, that we have to kind of arrive at this juncture to get it going. So, I wonder, too, when that voice inside starts to speak to you about this is the wrong place to be, I am not congruent with where I should be or who I really am, I know that's a frightening moment for women, and it comes on sometimes suddenly, comes on slowly, and depending. But when you start to arrive at that moment, how does somebody begin to take steps forward? How do you start? Because it's a very, very frightening thing to leave a comfortable place, even if it is traumatic and terrible. It's difficult to walk away from something that's comfortable. At least you know it. But how does somebody get started?
I think what usually happens is the pain of staying where you are becomes too great, and you're at the point where you say, you know what? I'm going to try something new. I have to try something new. And so you begin to give yourself the space and grace and the radical self-compassion that you've probably been giving everybody else around you and not yourself. And you say, I'm going to put one toe in the water and I'm going to start exploring. Yeah. And it really is unbelievable how when one piece starts to get looked at and then there's this, all of a sudden there's a light instead of the dark place, then it takes off and it steamrolls. And so I think the first piece for women oftentimes is understanding the socialization piece and understanding how their family of origin, their epigenetics, social media now, right? All the things we see set us up for this comparison and this constant seeking. And when you start to just understand, again, the waters you're swimming in, it lifts a burden off your shoulders, not in a way of, I didn't have any part in this, but in a way of being like, I actually can get some control really quickly. Absolutely. And we look at it like 1% a day, 1% every couple of days of just starting to make shifts. And for women specifically, it has to be at the level of identity. Yes. And that really means understanding the barriers, the old story, breaking through these barriers and creating a new story. And that's the magic, is because when women get to that point, they are ready to create the new story that they get to choose. Absolutely. And so it's these behaviors and habits that we have to do to actually shift our identity. And that's very different from men, because women, what we do is we make everything shameful. And people talk about shame as an emotion, and it is an emotion, but it's also a state of being for women.
Yes.
And everything happens to us. Like, say for me, I gave a lecture and it wasn't received well, I would make that mean that I am not good at this and I'm never going to be good at this.
Right.
And I'm bad.
Right.
And most men would look at it as, you know what, I just need to put more time into this next time.
Right.
Right.
Very
right. And it creates this whole spiral, which then leads to lack, where the universe has nothing for me. I'm not worthy. I become very disconnected from myself, from whatever I believe my higher power is. And then I isolate myself.
Yep.
And so when we think about all these levels it's like virtual reality goggles that have all these layers in front of them.
Yep.
And that's how everything is coming at us through these lenses.
Correct.
And so you get to see really quickly, gosh, I'm not broken.
Right.
Look where I've gotten in life, even when there's all these things happening that I didn't even know.
True.
And now that I know and I'm learning, holy cow, like I'm unleashed.
Unleashed is a beautiful place to be. And it's interesting because my explanation to women and even young girls or whatnot about, being at this place in life is that there's this voice inside my head that's on all the time. And I could just pass somebody on the sidewalk and I smile and say good morning and hello. And if they give me a scowl or, even darn near roll their eyes, and don't say anything back as I pass, then the brain turns on and goes, what did I do wrong? Am I okay? Yep. Did I look okay? Did I not smile correctly? Or, is there something wrong with me? Right. And that voice, right. And that voice is always on in my head for everything from, I let the bread mold to the house fell down, whatever it is. I take total responsibility for it, but I think and overthink. It's interesting because my husband, who is the light of my life and my great reward for going through my personal journey and change and all of facing all of this, is I asked him, one day about that inner voice. I'm like, that voice in your head that does that? And he just kind of looked at me lost for a minute, shaking his head no, and said, no, I don't. And I'm like, wow, you don't do that? You think and think? And no, I don't have that. And from then on, I was amazed that I really don't have to do that any longer. It's kind of an eye-opening moment, but true. I really don't have to. We don't have to do that any longer. But I think that it is a long journey to get to that point. Yeah. And hence what your coaching efforts are underneath, and grateful for that. Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about how this impacts women's health. You're a physician, so you understand this very clearly, and I want to open that up just a little bit. We will take a very short break, though. I do have a wonderful sponsor, Magna Pharmaceuticals, who takes great care of me and the show, and we'll run that really quickly, but come back on the other side. Before we do that, can you please give us information about where to find you and all the things you're involved in?
Yes. My website is stephaniebyerly.com, going through a rebrand right now. So my website is sort of a placeholder if anybody takes a look. And there is a place to book a breakthrough call. I have all my social is at stephaniebyerlymd.com for LinkedIn and for Facebook and for Instagram.
Great. And all of this information will be highlighted on the website, drpbetterlife.com. So please take a look, and she will be well represented there so you can find out how to progress and move forward here. We will take a short break and be right back.
Depression, anxiety, low energy, weakness, these are just some symptoms of low B12 levels. And the absorbable B12 folate supplement that's helping people declare victory over depression symptoms is De Novo Plus B12 by Magna Pharmaceuticals. Patients with symptoms of depression often exhibit low levels of folate and vitamin B12. The human body needs sufficient folate intake to produce the essential neurotransmitters serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. These neurotransmitters alleviate feelings of sadness, anxiety, anxiety, and gloom. What makes De Novo Plus B12 so successful? De Novo Plus B12 contains readily absorbable folate and B12. That means it's more successful at correcting the root cause of your deficiency, not just the symptoms. Whether you are suffering with low energy, depression, fatigue, or anxiety, you owe it to yourself to learn more at magnaweb.com. That's magnaweb.com. Please let us know at checkout that you heard about De Novo Plus B12 on The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston here with Dr. Stephanie Byerly, who is a certified life and leadership coach and also a trauma-informed coach. And we are discussing unnumbing yourself in her program, which is absolutely, she has been so descriptive and so wonderful at opening up this topic, this sore that many women carry underneath. We talked about before we left that this can have implications for health. And I do believe very sincerely, and as you mentioned before we got started, in the shortening of life expectancy, but also a huge cost burden to the insurance world, to just our general health in the country. So how does trauma and underlying the coping mechanisms that we do dealing with stress, but also keeping things inside, building resentment, et cetera. How does this affect women's health?
There's something called the ACEs survey, Adverse Childhood Experiences Survey. And if you take that, there's 10 questions. And this was looked at through the age of 18. And it talked about all different types of trauma. And based on your number, if you have a score of 4 or more, your life expectancy is actually decreased. And we've all had trauma. We don't realize it. We talk about this big T trauma, little T trauma, but it really doesn't matter what the trauma was. It's all depending on how your nervous system was resourced at the time and how much support you had around you. And so you and I may experience the same trauma and you may have no effect from it. And I may be devastated by it. And what we don't realize is it lives in our nervous system. And so trauma is not necessarily what happened to you, but it's what happened inside of you because of what happened to you. That's the definition that Dr. Gabor Mate uses. And it really explains that, right? And so if you live in a constant state of flight or fight, and thinking about what happens physiologically, you have a lot of cortisol floating around, you have a higher chance of getting diabetes, heart disease, when you have this ACEs score that's higher, addiction, mental illness, a chance of being incarcerated, panic attacks, all these different things that put our body at a great stress. But then we also think about the way we stuff things down. And when we do that, it gets trapped in our body. And so we are so much not embodied anymore. We live in our head. Like you said, we're constantly that little voice. We're constantly chasing, doing things. And so we ignore self-care. We're usually doing destructive behaviors, but having that trauma energy or things that we're stuffing down, we know now that most doctor visits are based on things that are associated with this kind of stuff with our body. And for so long, I would call myself somatic because I had so many problems that I was like, why am I having all these issues? And when I started understanding my trauma and all of the things and started healing and embodying safety, they all went away.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that specifically because I feel many people with chronic pain and, depression, anxiety, and those are, to me, the obvious things. But chronic pain, I think, is something that we don't realize can be a piece of that. We think, there's something wrong with us that has to be fixed. And all along, it really is our reactions and our world around us from our past and present.
Absolutely.
I think it's an enormous and wonderful thing to be able to sit down, understand that, start to rewire yourself and your brain and your habits and your thoughts and heal. A lot of those diseases and chronic pain goes away. I think also that because we're having an epidemic of autoimmunity now.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
astounding in its numbers. And I do believe that autoimmunity in women is uniquely tied to that. I have rheumatoid arthritis. I've suffered it 20 years, and that perfectly matches a lot of issues that surrounded me and lack of support. But also gained up to 300 pounds at one point and lost 180 pounds.
Amazing.
I think that is another piece of it too. So, I want people, mostly women, but I want people to understand that you don't have to live in that prison of, being overweight or in pain or diagnosed with a disease necessarily. Things you could just understand and face.
Absolutely. And Dr. Gabor Mate really talks about that, about most autoimmune diseases are caused by unprocessed trauma. Wow. And the book by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score, is a very intense book.
Yes.
And it explains, all of this.
Every bit of that.
And definitely the chronic pain. I'm in a program now where someone had introduced something called NSA. Have you heard of that?
I haven't heard much about it, I'll be honest.
Yeah. A type of chiropractic work where they actually go in and move the energy. And what they find is that it's this trapped, unprocessed trauma.
Wow.
And once they start to release the energy and move the energy through your body, the people in your pain goes away. So isn't it amazing to think there is a way that this can happen?
Right.
And your whole life can shift.
It can. It can. Please hear that. Your life can shift. Please hear that. And there's a lot of different ways to do it, and you can some on your own. I think getting support is of the utmost importance.
Mm-hmm.
You do not need to do this on your own. Not that it's not possible, but I do think the support is incredibly important. And getting whether it's books like you mentioned or meditation, visualization, EMDR, and so many different types of therapies that are developing out there, but get support and don't walk this walk alone. But I'm glad there are many things out there now that are being highlighted differently, like EMDR, and now even with the use of psychedelics, I think at some point responsibly will be important. So glad you agree.
Absolutely.
Not everybody does, but I'm glad you do. Is there anything that we have left out at this point that you see important to your work, but also that our public needs to know?
Really that, there's so many of us are walking around numb, and it doesn't have to be that way, and we don't even know we're numb. So we feel numb, but we may outwardly be anxious or depressed or all of these things, and that it is really, it takes such a toll. It's really painful to think about that. Really? And just that, like, as you mentioned, it doesn't have to be this way. Life can shift very, very quickly, and getting support, as you mentioned, can compress time. And I don't want women to go on this journey that I went on for 20 years because, some of these things weren't even put in place. There wasn't really no coaching that people knew about per se, and all this work about trauma and the women's center, all these pieces. It's just that there's so much available right now, and time can be compressed, into months, a year, 2 years versus decades. And so why not?
Thank you. Hear that, please. Why?
Yeah.
But this is a transition you can make in the life you are living in right now. Nothing needs to change first before you take that step. It's something that you can do. And I hope the younger you are realizing it, the better. But like you say, sometimes we just have to get to that place. Things are better now. There are more places, more books to read, more social media is full of it now. And because I'm studying and writing about this now, my Instagram is just full all the time with Mate and everybody. And it's wonderful that the news is getting out, that this is possible and this is true. And I definitely, and you highlighted this beautifully, that you don't have to feel shame for having lived the way you've lived. It's not your fault. There's accountability to be taken, but it is not your fault, and that this is something you can walk through and transgress. So Thank you. I really appreciate you so much. First of all, for the work that you're doing with women and bringing this to light. How can people get in touch with you?
Thank you. This was a great conversation. My website is stephaniebyerly.com, and all my social media is at Stephanie Byerly MD. And also my email is stephanie@stephaniebyerly.com. And I would love to connect with people if they want to learn more about this. And really, I'm hoping that they do, because it is the path to really having the juicy, exciting, wonderful, passionate life that you dreamed about.
It is possible. It is possible. I never thought it possible. I really never thought it possible. But you've got two women here who have done it, and we are not superheroes. We are just people who are looking out for ourselves and want more. And I know plenty of people out there. So wonderful. Thank you very much. And so everybody, you can find all of her information and contact on drpbetterlife.com. So please visit. And thank you again for being on. I hope everybody has a wonderful week. Please take care of each other out there, as always.
You've been enjoying The Better Life with Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston. For more information, go to drpthebetterlife.com. That's drpthebetterlife.com. And listen next week for The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston.